married that has not gotten one of these? And you know what frustrates me might not frustrate you. What frustrates my wife might not frustrate some other married lady. And so, the key is, I don't want to frustrate the person I live with. I remember years ago, Dr. Howells preached a sermon, don't discourage your encourager. And he said, there's somebody in Paul was talking, he was quoting Paul, and the Apostle Paul, just stick him up here. Here, I'll take him up here. The Apostle Paul was talking about how he didn't want to discourage the Corinthian church because they're the ones that encouraged him. And Brother Howells preached a whole sermon on people's relationships. Yeah, look, how am I going to have a happy home if my wife is frustrated to pieces? It's not going to happen. My kids won't be happy. Now, there's things that have to happen that can't happen and things like that, but within the realm of right and order, I want to have a happy home. I want to try and keep my wife encouraged. And somebody says, well, it's the truth that needs to be spoken. Well, if it totally devastates your spouse, maybe just suck it up and deal with it. And I don't know, and you're gonna have to take care of those things. But we're talking about dealing with character traits tonight. Things, and just keep coming in. You that are in the back, if people come in, tell them to come on in. I'll try and keep bringing people up here. But this is going to be casual. If you want to take notes, are we recording this? Does anybody know? We are now, Dawn. We'll try and get this together. I don't think we recorded my wife's session. That session she did today was brand new. She hadn't done that before, and I don't think it got recorded. We messed up on that. But anyway, so we're just gonna go through some character traits, and so we'll try and get things together. So Mrs. Goddard, why don't you come on up, and I'll just take a minute or two to introduce this and see if we can't. We'll give her that mic. And we haven't taught together for some time. And in fact, I was listening last night to a sermon from 2008, I think it was, and she and I were teaching together, and I was laughing. But anyway, so many of you are still married that we were talking about in that message. So anyway, this is not church, this is not preaching, we're in the living room of our house talking about family, and we don't know it all. Most of what you hear us teach, we have stolen. One of the best outlines I have on child rearing is from birth to school age, maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, is character training. From 6 or 7 years old to about 12 years old is character retraining. You got to do it all over again. Don't get discouraged. I thought I taught my kid this, and don't worry about it. It's retraining. And then the teen years are character testing, when you find out how good a job you did. And that's a good outline, and that's about 3 hours of teaching. And I stole it straight from Bob Gray in Longview, Texas. I don't mind giving credit when I remember, but we don't have it all together. But I'll tell you, we read good authors, godly authors. We don't listen to any junk on the radio. We're very careful where we get our material. So some of this is from our home, some of it's from your home, some of it's from friends we have in the church. In fact, I was going to ask Brother Russell, can you take a minute and do an endorsement here? Good. Why don't you come up? You want to come up here for a minute? Just sit for a minute, sweetie, and let Brother Russell talk about how good we are. You take the pulpit.
Yeah. To tell how good preacher is, it'll take about 2 seconds. All right, I'm done. I had to get that one in. Well, my wife and I were here 12 years ago, and Pastor Mary's Goddard were teaching on the child rearing classes. They would take a 5 or 6 week time and teach. My wife and I came, and and a lot of it is just your attitude. My wife and I were very teachable, and we just bought into it lock, stock, and barrel. And even to this day, we had bought the complete set of child rearing tapes, and even Dan and I were just talking about it, and I believe for about a year or more, that is all that my wife and I listened to in the home. I'd be gone, she'd be working. We'd listen to those tapes over and over, and it's just practical. What do I do with this newborn? Whether it's a schedule, whether it's discipline, and part of it was both of us came from not strict homes, but homes where mom and dad were not afraid to punish at an early age. Now my dad did not get from preacher to go sit in your room and pray, and it was just the black belt of justice was swung wildly on the seat of education. But it worked, amen. And my head twitches every once in a while, but other than that, I turned out okay. But those tapes, and we even to this day, there's a couple in church now that they have all those tapes of Preacher Mrs. Goddard. And they've said it before. Now that I have teenagers in our home, I feel the same way. I think I would not want to be in their position of teaching on child rearing, because humanly we think, well, everyone else is going to think, well, I saw your kid do this, or I saw your kid, and that is not the case. And you always feel kind of uncomfortable teaching it, but we listened to it, we applied it. Every area of our lives, and there's so much wisdom just looking, even just the book of Proverbs, what biblical things we can do to apply to our lives in our child rearing, in our discipline, and our loving them, and we just listened to it, and we decided whatever they say from biblical principles, we're going to apply. And like I said, to this day, there's a couple that has them now that have very young children, and kind of a rebuilding or a new home to our type of Christianity, and that's what they need. And those tapes are exactly what young couples that are about to have kids, who got kids 5 years and under, but it's important to practice. And Preacher said it before, 5 and 6 years old is getting pretty late to start discipline. It really is. But we learned that from those cassette tapes. And you start when those kids are young with a schedule and discipline and lots of love and affection, and it will make a tremendous, tremendous difference in your home. All right, thank you.
All right, here, Brother Russell.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to pay him off. Those, you can tell he listened to the originals. He's talking about cassette tapes. We don't have cassette tapes available anymore. There's CDs back there for the non-primitive people that use cassettes. Why don't you come on up, sweetie? So this is bits and pieces, different angles of things. So we just picked a random 6, 8, 10 character traits, and we'll interrupt each other a little bit. And if you want to raise a hand and say, well, what about, you're welcome to. We may or may not ignore you. But anyway, I'm going to let my wife start, and we'll let her talk a little bit. And if I interrupt her, it's because we're in the living room talking with friends, and we'll go from there, okay?
Okay. First, I want to say that we are definitely not perfect parents, and we didn't always do everything right. And we have 3 grown children who are married, and looking back, there are some things not what we're saying here, but there are some things we wish we would have done a little better, maybe some things we would have done a little different. So, you don't
like going to the bedroom and praying before you...
No, but you don't have to be a perfect parent. But I do know the Bible works.
Amen.
And so we have always tried to follow the Bible and apply the Bible to our child rearing, and then just use some just good common sense. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit right now about teaching your child to listen, how important it is that you teach your child to listen. Every time someone speaks to them, a child should know they need to listen. A child who doesn't know how to listen, they will not do well in school, for one thing. No matter how talented or how intelligent they are, they will struggle in school. So just so that they'll be successful in life, you want them to learn to listen. So there are some different things you can do to teach your child to be attentive. One is that they should always be made to stop whatever they're doing when you talk to them. If they're reading a book and you call their name, they need to put the book down, and you need to have their attention. Don't keep talking to your child if they're not looking at you. If they're playing the video, like the husband reading the newspaper, no.
But don't insist on him putting the newspaper down.
No. I mean, when your child acts like that. But
And with little children, don't forget your spot. With little children, I have grabbed the chin. I don't mean brutally, I did not leave bruises, and pulled the chin around and said, look me right here in the eye. Because eye contact is huge. And focus. So.
Also, it's good if you require them to answer you. When you tell them something, if you want them to say yes, ma'am, ladies, whatever you want is appropriate to you, but they should answer you. Yes, I'll do that. Yes, ma'am, I'll do that. Or yes, ma'am. Or just respond so you know that they got it. And then ask them I think often it's good to ask them to repeat. Now, repeat what I just told you.
That keeps them from being able to say, oh, I didn't understand.
And then have them tell it back to you. And it's so good to talk to your children. Speak to them often. You know what? A child who's never really spoken to, except for, on extreme conditions when they're driving you crazy, they won't know how to listen because they're not used to anyone ever speaking to them. But ask them questions to get them to find out what they're thinking. Ask them questions about things. You could play games with your children that will help develop their ability to listen. You could play a game, you could hide an object, a small object in the room, and then you could call them in and you could say things like, take 5 steps forward. Okay, turn to your right. If they don't know what right is, say turn toward the front door or whatever's over there. And you can say take 2 steps forward and bend down and look under the pillow. And they have to do every single thing you say. And when they find the object, they win the prize.
Now, this is not with your 16.
No, no. This is little children.
Little children.
Most of what I'm going to say here is for little children. But of course, when they're older, they should be made to listen, to pay attention also.
She does that with Josiah all the time. She puts Snicker bars under the couch.
When they're little, you could play games like, I want you to tell me what the sound is. Close your eyes, and you could jingle keys, or you could squeeze a toy, or close the door, or tap a spoon against a glass and see if they could tell what's making that sound. Just teaching them to listen. And those are fun ways to teach a child to listen. You could clap a rhythm and have the child listen and clap the same rhythm. That's another way. I'm not very coordinated. I probably wouldn't get that one right. But you could take a walk outside and say, close your eyes and tell me what you hear. I hear cars. I hear the wind and the trees. Although we don't have many trees around here, but I hear birds, I hear dog bark, so things like that.
Once they get where they can write, you could send them out. I'm going to talk about independence in a minute. Say, walk to this point and back. Don't tell them what you're doing. And when they get back, say, now, write down everything you saw. And do it with them. And teaching them not only to be attentive to you, but attentive to life. We've got people who run through life just void of understanding. They got no clue what's going on around them. And then that's, anyway, go ahead.
Another way to teach your child to be a good listener is to read to them. Reading to children is very important, and they don't have the television that changes scenes, every 4 seconds, every 5 seconds. That just teaches a child to have a short attention span. But read to them, let them use their imagination. The younger the child is, I would limit TV. Little children do not need a lot of TV. It's not good for them. It will hurt their ability to learn. It'll hurt their ability to pay attention. And
it'll warp their views on life.
I just want to encourage you, do not get in the habit of using your television as a babysitter to make your life easier, because you know if you could put the kids in front of it, you could go do the things that you want to do. Well, raising your children are the things that you should want to do. And so be very careful. I'm not saying no ever, but I'm really saying limit how much media, how much TV, video games for very small children. It might be a once a week treat or once a month but if they're every day for hours on with the TV, you're not doing your children a favor, and they won't be very good listeners, and they won't have a good attention span.
Traveling today, the common thing in travel, because of how much technology we have, is people get in the car and they watch TV while they travel, whether it be videos. I don't watch any TV, but they got 9,000 hours of DVDs. It's the same thing, just no commercials, which is a big step better, because commercials are as bad a thing as anything. And we would, on a trip, bring a DVD player or whatever, but we don't want that to occupy, because when my child is looking at a DVD player, what they're doing is shutting everybody else in the car out. And life is relationships. And so again, this thing of attentiveness, don't let the TV dominate things, and that got off a little bit. Boy, that TV's an enemy. Go ahead. You don't want to go any further. She's done with this thing. So attentiveness, a character trait, teaching your children to pay attention. Another thing along those lines I would do with attentiveness is somebody walks into our house and someone says, and again, little children, little kids don't want to talk to a stranger. And whatever you do, they're your kids, honest. I am not judging anybody, but tell the strange man that looks scary, hello, smile at him and shake his hand. I don't feel that's necessary. Now, if you do, that's fine. But I do think if I am talking to the strange, scary man at the front door, my kids should not be coming in interrupting me. That's partly respect, and it's also stand there and listen. Be still. Learn to entertain yourself. Learn to focus your mind. Don't be tugging on my hand to pull me away. Anyway, the world doesn't center on them. A second thought, and again, just because of time, we're gonna have to pay attention to the clock because the clock is wrong up there. We're at 10 till right now. But as independence, I don't know in our culture if there's anything that is there's so many character traits being destroyed in America, but independence is just being messed up. We wanted our children to be independent, and obviously everybody's got different values and things. But Josh here, he's 30. I remember when Josh was little, and I mean little like 6. He needed a new pair of shoes. Often our dates, I took our kids out every week without fail. I mean from little, still in diapers. Once a week, took the kids out, just me and them. And that's not a right or wrong, it's what I did. I know Brother Treber's got great kids serving God. Brother Treber never did individual dates, he did family dates. We're all going here, we're all going there. So I'm saying that just so you know, what you do, you don't have to do what I do, even though Brother Russell says lockstep, whatever the preacher said. But anyway, he did, specifically say if it's according to the scriptures. But I took him out alone. I wanted to have that one-on-one. But often it would be, what do they need? I might ask Mrs. Goddard. I was going to take Hannah out. Does she need anything? So instead of her going to the store already and just picking up what she needs, she would save things for me. She would help endear the kids' hearts to Dad. And so I'd go out, get an ice cream, or maybe we'd eat lunch together, and we'd go buy that thing that was needed. I remember one time Josh needed shoes, and we went to Payless Shoes. And I was right there at the front door. I said, hey, buddy, why don't you go on in? You need church shoes, right? Yeah, I need church shoes. All right, you go in there, look around, see if you can pick out some church shoes. I'll be in a couple of minutes. I got to do something for you. And I had nothing to do except let him go into the store alone. And he was very little. I don't know how old. I couldn't tell you. He might be able to tell you the story better than me. But often we did things with our children. And once they're in school, certainly, look, if you can put them off in a school full of who knows what, let them be independent. Put them out in the backyard working. Independence is such a big thing. Put them on the bicycle. Say, hey, ride down to the store and pick up whatever, even if you don't need it. There's empty time. Tell them to go down. Well, what if they get kidnapped? Have another one. Yard work. I am 4 yards. These tiny little track home lots are just a curse from the devil. But yard work is so good, and especially for boys, to teach a boy the independence to go face a job. And so with me and the boys, we'd work on something together. We'd dig up a broken water line. We'd dig up a sprinkler, change a sprinkler, adjust the sprinkler, work on it. Well, the next time I'd say, hey, buddy, remember how to do that? Do you think you could do that? And I'd pay them. I want to develop independence in them. I want them to know I can go out, I can face this, I can do this thing on my own. And I would talk about it. I'd say, yeah, my son, he can take care of that for you. He knows how to do that all by himself. He doesn't need Dad. And now that I'm older, I can't do it anymore. I really do need the kids now. Make young people face things. And Josiah said, are you going to have some good illustrations of me? No, you're still a teenager, but I'll use Josh. Josh is out in the backyard. We had 6 acres, and he had one of those Estes rockets, and we had rockets, and he knew he could fire those rockets off. Well, it just happened, instead of that one going up, it went shoom, just straight sideways. It went right into the bushes, spraying out fire into the weeds. Well, it caught the field on fire, 6 acres of field. And the fire department comes, and the neighbors are out there panicking with fire garden hoses and all this kind of things. And the fire department shows up, and by this time he's back with his mom. I'm gone. And, it wasn't a big fire. It didn't burn any houses down or anything. And she told Josh he had to go over and tell the fireman what happened by himself. You know how old you were, Josh? 7th grade, so junior high, somewhere in there. And I had no problem with him being out there at that age firing off rockets. I want our kids to do things. And I wanted to go. I mentioned this morning in my sermon, my mom gave us great liberty. And we may have gotten in some trouble we shouldn't have, but we never got in any bad trouble, just little trouble. The time we came home with the my dad used to say jokingly, I'll go out and hunt rattlesnakes. And the day we came home with the rattlesnake, it was a little tense. But we often came home with a rabbit. When we were little, we raised rabbits. And again, this is this independence thing. We raised domestic rabbits, my brother and I. And I know this is a long time ago, and you probably couldn't do this today, but you got to find ways to do it. And we would raise the rabbits, we'd breed them, and they'd have babies, and they'd raise them up 10, 12 weeks, however far into this thing, and we'd butcher them by ourselves. I mean, I remember, if you don't know how to do it, probably too many kids here, I won't tell you how we did it, but we did not use a gun, we used a club. But anyway, hung them by the back legs, the head goes up like this, and cut the throat, cut the belly. Within 5-10 minutes of the time the rabbit was breathing and hopping around, hippity-hoppity little bunny foo-foo, we'd go in the kitchen and get a bread bag from Mom that the loaf of bread was in, stuff the warm rabbit, had not even cooled its body heat yet, and we'd go knocking on doors selling rabbits for $1 a pound. That's just what we did. So you've got to, it's fishing, going on this men's fishing trip. Let the kid go down to the stream by him, especially boys, I'm talking about boys. Let him go down to the stream by himself. Well, what if he hooks himself? He'll learn not to hook himself. You don't do that many times before you realize, what if he loses an eye? Patch the pirate number 2. And we worry so much. I worry more about a wimpy kid who's afraid to go do something than I am a kid getting hurt. Pocket knives. Every boy ought to have a pocket knife. My goodness. And if you don't believe in pocket knife, realize the kids are in here. I shouldn't have said that. When the parents think it's proper. Well, what if he cuts himself? He will. You know, what kid, we were talking at lunch today, Ms. Shue said, what boy is not cut, trying to whittle something, what boy has not cut the top of his thumb knuckle? And she said, what lady's not cut her same knuckle on the grater? Well, it's more fun doing it on a pocket knife whittling than on a grater, grating your carrots or something. But getting a kid, by the time our kids were junior high, they could wash a car and vacuum a car better than the car wash. Now, it's teaching them to work, and that's an awful lot my wife, because she had more time than me. But the independence to go out and do a job without somebody holding their hand, develop that in boys and girls, and we'll go from there. Why don't you go, just for the sake of time, we'll hit, I think, got obedience here.
One of the main reasons we need to teach our children to obey is in Colossians 3:20, it says, children, obey your parents in all things, for this is well-pleasing unto the Lord. I know for me, I don't know if there's anything I want more in life than for my children to please God.
Amen.
And they will not do that if I don't teach them to obey me. And what is obedience? Exactly, you know, one of the problems is I don't think we know what obedience is sometimes as parents, and we have to get that established in our own mind before we could make sure that our children are doing it. But I like this definition, and we tried to use this definition as our guide, is obedience is doing exactly what you're told to do immediately with the right heart attitude. And I've just kind of broken that up here just to explain this, exactly what you're told to do. I'll give you a few illustrations. And many of you have, if you've heard the child rearing tapes, or if you've heard us speak before, a lot of this is old material, but a lot of you are new parents and you haven't heard it, and some of you have forgotten it, so I'm going to remind you. But when I used to teach kindergarten, there's a lot of things that I wanted to teach those children. Of course, I wanted to teach them their letters and their numbers, and I wanted them to be able to read when we were finished, but I also wanted to teach them to obey, because if they learn to obey, they will please God. And I remember one time I used to have the children hold their finger up and say, okay, take your finger and put your finger on the word dog, or whatever word it was, and they would put their finger on the word dog, and then I would walk around and make sure they all knew what dog was. Put your finger on the word cat. Okay, and this is first grade, not kindergarten. And so, but I had one little boy in that class. I don't think he's in here, but he is in our church today. And he would do this. I'd say, everybody hold your finger up, and he would do this. Now, it didn't really matter if he put I wanted to know if they knew the word, right? So did it really matter if he used his finger or his thumb? Well, if I just was concerned about him learning to read, no. But I was concerned about more than that. I was concerned about that he learned to obey. Because learning to obey is more important than learning to read. So he would put his thumb up and put his thumb on the word.
And that is total
And
rebellion.
that was rebellion.
Absolute rebellion.
I'm going to do this my way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, I fixed that. And he learned to put his finger up.
He's now called Mr. Four-Finger. Bilbo of the Four Fingers.
But you know, children can disobey in very subtle ways. And you think you've got this great kid and they're always doing it their way. But if you tell a child to do some things in order, now don't give them too much or they won't remember. Like you say, okay, I want you to go take a shower, I want you to practice your piano, and then do your homework. They need to go take a shower, practice their piano, and do their homework in that order. And they should not rearrange that order unless they ask permission to rearrange that order. Sometimes it doesn't even matter. But if it's a child who's always asking permission to rearrange your order, I would just start saying, no, do it this way. Because they need to learn to submit their will to someone who's older and wiser than them. In school also, when I taught older children, I taught in my home, I homeschooled about 5 children, an elementary school child and 4 high school children for a while. And when they would get an answer wrong, I would tell them, you need to go look up the right answer and change your answer. Well, I noticed this one kid, they would bring it back to me and the answer would still be wrong. And it was because they were not looking up the answer and putting a right answer. They were just guessing again. And so they were disobeying. It wasn't so much the wrong answer. Now we have an obedience problem. They needed to go look up the answer. Now, if they struggled finding the answer, I could help them. Just exactly what they're told to do. And then immediately, not after the next chapter in the book, not after the TV program, not after the video game, immediately they need to obey. Unless they ask, do you want me to do it right now, or can I finish this chapter? When I'm in the middle of a good book, I don't want to, if I'm almost to the end of the chapter, I kind of like to stop at a stopping point. So I would have mercy and say, oh yeah, how much do you have left? Yeah, finish that.
Can I finish this level in the video game and do it?
Is no.
Now, will that be 3 hours?
Yeah.
Or what?
What's that mean? It's like a football game. 2 minutes? What's that mean? 2 hours later, now there's 1 minute left in the football game. That's a video game too. But anyway, and then of course the right heart attitude. No stomping, no faces, no rolling their eyes, because that's not a right heart attitude. There should just be a simple, yes ma'am, I'll do that. And I've seen my children do the yes ma'am, I'll do that. Very kind and very nice, but I knew inside they weren't feeling that way at all. But they were very under control, and they did the right thing on the outside, and that's all I care about, especially boys. They ought to have a little bit of, okay, I'll do it, Mom, when it has to do with Mom, because I think it's good that older boys have a little bit of struggle doing with what women tell them to
Probably
do.
not a little child, but a teenager.
No. So anyway, but they should have a right heart
How many
attitude.
older people could slam a door going to your room in frustration and get away with it? Is that stomp your feet? No way. Nobody should be able to stomp their feet when they're, I'm obeying. Oh, no, you're not obeying. Right heart attitude. Right heart attitude is huge.
And then, of course, you should always have a punishment for a violation of the wrong. And the punishment, this is the key to punishment. The punishment should cost them more than the joy of the wrong. And a lot of parents, sometimes that's where they go wrong, is their punishments aren't costing the child enough. And for me, if the punishment I chose didn't seem to fix the problem, then I used that punishment again and added another one. And if that didn't fix the problem, then I used those 2 punishments and added another one. And we just kept searching around until we found what was going to get through to this child so they would obey me.
And see, obedience is, kids are so different. We've got 4 and none of them were the same. And you that have just one child, you don't realize how different one child is to another. So this form of punishment or discipline or even instruction works here, but it won't work nearly as well here as something else. And as we get older, Mike and Misty Payne, right? As you have these babies later in life, you know what was easy with Josh, well, we're 14 years later when Josiah was born. And it's not just their different personalities, we're older. And it does matter. We are different people. And Josh grew up in a home with a dad where the church was running 150, and I was broke, but I had time. And I was 30 years old or something like that. Well, Josiah grew up in a home with a dad where the church is running 1,000, and dad's old. And he doesn't have any time. And so everyone's got to be unique in all this, and obedience and all that. Go ahead. You had some more on that, I think.
Yes, just try not to make excuses for your child's disobedience. I've heard parents say, oh, he's hungry. It's because he's hungry he's being like this. Or he's tired. Or I think he's coming down with something. You know, a lot of kids are coming down with things. Well, you know what? He may be hungry. If he's hungry, take him somewhere and feed him. If he's tired, go give him a nap. If he's coming down with something, take care of him. But don't let him disobey. That's right. Yeah. Those are not excuses for disobedience, ever. Fix the problem, but they cannot disobey. You can't just do right when you feel like it. And so we don't want our children to be taught, well, when you don't feel good or you're out of sorts, it's okay to be disobedient. And of course, when you have the correct punishment, when you have performed the correct punishment, your child is going to believe that you're right and he's wrong. If your child has not reached that point, you have not corrected him. You've not fixed the problem.
The word correct means it's fixed. That's different than punishment.
And then, of course, never allow them to talk back. No arguing. Don't let them make excuses. You know, I think the Bible says that if we cover our sin, we won't prosper. But if we confess and forsake our sin, then we'll have mercy. And so don't let your children make excuses for why they did wrong. If we all have our own choices to make, and they made their choice, and if they did wrong, they need to take responsibility for it. And don't let them blame others for their faults. It wasn't the teacher's fault. That's right. It wasn't their friend's fault. They chose. Nobody controls them. They decide to do what they want to do. Make them take responsibility for their actions, and of course be consistent.
There's so much about this, and these we're just overviewing. By the way, we're out on the book table. There's a lot of things out there. One thing that's not out there, and we're going to have a book list, I hope, tomorrow night. But if you want to scribble a note, there's a book by John Stormer called Growing Up God's Way. It's not on Kindle. It's probably needs to be reprinted, and I don't even know if you can buy new ones. Mrs. Young might have a few copies left. I don't know, but you could probably get it on Amazon for a penny. But it's a good book. It's just a rich book, and John Stormer's brilliant. He wrote None Dare Call It Treason, and that was off the charts smart, and some of it I didn't even understand. But Growing Up God's Way, he took Susanna Wesley's key character traits she wanted to teach her children. She kept going over and over, and we kind of gone off that to some of these. But let me go back to teaching independence, just a thought on that. Mrs. Goddard did this, and if you wanted to talk about it, she'd give you better details. But when Hannah we're talking about babysitting and teaching young people to do things and to be independent. There was one summer we had a chance, there were a couple of families who needed, how many kids did we have at one time? Remember that summer we had quite a few kids, 7 kids? So Hannah was there, Esther was there, and their babysitting. Now it was Hannah's job, and she was getting paid for it. So if it's her job, that means it's not her job. She was there to call 911 if somebody's drowning in the pool or something. But I watched Mrs. Goddard sit down with Hannah and say, now 9 kids are going to drive you nuts, or 7 kids, whatever it was. And she sat down with her and helped her make up a schedule. From this time to this time, it's reading time. You're going to sit, quiet, read from this time to this time. You're going to go outside and play. It didn't matter how hot it was. It didn't matter whether you liked it or not. You're going outside to play. Because schedule and routine is invaluable to a happy home. And I'll talk about that in my sermon tonight. But So I watched her, and she made this schedule, and I would not have done. I wouldn't even have thought of that. She thinks that way, and that's why it's great that I married her, because we both bring in these things. We bring a lot to the table together. But so she's got a daughter. Of course, Esther's there in that age, so Esther's helping. Well, this is the time they're going to be read 2, and this is the time they're going to swim, because we had a pool at that house, and on and on. Well, then she backed off, said, run it. And those girls, babysitting, had to run this thing. And we wanted our daughters independent enough. All right, it's time that I'm at whatever. Do you know what grade she was? Any idea? Or Esther, you remember?
It was high school.
High school?
Esther was younger, so
right.
Esther
would be 4 years
she was
younger.
kind of one of the kids.
Esther was the age of one of the kids, but I thought Esther would remember. But anyway, she ran that all summer long, and it was work. She had to be up early in the morning. Those kids came at whatever, 5:30, 6:30 in the morning.
I think she was 16.
16, so she's, but 7 kids is a lot to take care of for a teenage girl. She was there as a guide, but she made her do it all. There's something missing when we've got to, as parents, be right over their shoulder all the time. Let your children color. Let them read. Let them clean their room. Independence. This country is dying because we've got to have somebody hold our hand every time we go anywhere and do anything. This country was not built on a nanny state mentality where somebody's got to help me do everything. My goodness, see, what we've messed up in America, no one's willing to go start a church like Mike Johnson did up in Redding, or like we did here, because we're all afraid to go do something alone. Just get on, do it. But it sure helps when that's been brought up. Let me throw to the word contentment. And I'm just going to be very brief on the word contentment. And this thing of contentment, I don't know, I mean, there's all these character traits are important, but contentment, and we cannot allow our kids to grow up whining and complaining. Just decide right off the bat, you're not going to complain. I would, if you had a child, I mean, she and I will be somewhere and say, wow, it's really hot. That's different than a kid who is always griping about something. If I had a child who had a tendency to complain, I would not let him say it's hot outside. I would stop saying, no, don't say it. I'd stop him. Just like that, stop him. Because you can allow a child to grow and to develop a spirit of discontentment. And I mean from little child. I'm talking about before they can walk, teach them to be content. There's children, and you that have babies, you're going to see this, and children are different. There are kids who always want to be held. Take them in the other room, put them on a blanket on the floor, and leave them. I mean, from infancy, that child should, they're not asleep and they're bored, then let them learn to put a stuffed animal on this side and the live cat on the other side.
You know, personalities, there are some personalities that are more content. My husband is more content personality than I am. I would be the one who would be prone to complain. You ask him if it's warm, how he feels. He doesn't even know how he feels. Oh, is it cold? Are you cold? No, I don't know. Am I cold? He's just a content person. I know how I feel. And I will express it. Well, in our home, we have 4 children. We have 2 that are a little bit more expressive of how they feel, and we have 2 that are more content. And so because of that, the ones that are a little bit more complainy, we had to work on that. And we had, like he said, but you will have, it's not your fault if your children have these tendencies, it's just something to work on. Because wonderful people have these tendencies.
Their biggest problem is they marry people who are content. But, in basketball, the big thing is a triple-double. Points, rebounds, and assists in double figures. And the goal to being an exceptional athlete is to raise your weak area. And that's a whole other character trait, another philosophy of child rearing. Don't push your child's strengths to excel. My kid's good at this, so I'm going to put all my energy. No, they're good at it. Forget it. Find what they're not good at and raise that area. My kid loves to read. Good. Give him plenty of books, but make him go work in the yard. Make them go play a game with someone else or whatever. But in contentment, don't let your kid come home complaining about, the complaining is the key thing. Don't let them complain about school. Don't let them complain about the book is too long, or, oh, the science fair, and they didn't tell us. Who wants to marry that? Who wants to hire that? Don't let them complain about the referee, even though their parents will. That's different.
We used to, for some of our children, we'd have to say, okay, when we'd ask them how their day, I want you to tell me something good about the day. Those children, you don't ask, how was your day? Because then you're going to get into this whole negative thing about the day. So then you say, okay, tell me something good that happened today. And you say, look, we're going to sit here until you can think of something good that happened today. Something good had to have happened today. Because a lot of times they don't even think positive in any way. So you have to bring it out.
That word train up a child. Ask Brother Cook here. You train a Marine, right? You're training that empty-headed guy to think right. And you have to push some of the things out of his mind that are wrong. Today, and I don't mean this negative, I'm just telling you our lifestyle. We had, who do we have in the car?
Zach.
With Zach,
And
Virginia, and Micah in the back of
on the way there.
On the way to lunch today, with the 3 younger kids of our friends of the Shu family. And we're driving on the freeway. I said, all right, tell me, they're from Rwanda. They've lived there more than they've been in America. I said, tell me something you like about Rwanda. And then tell me something you like about America. Now you know what? That was called control. I was now in control of the spirit of the car. And I don't go to my wife, all right, tell me something you liked about you. That's a way to really create tension in the home. But, and so we talked, well, I learned about them. I learned about their home, not their home, their country. And I learned what they like. They've been here a few months. And so I'm learning about, their world, a different world than my kids grew up in. But another thing is, we're having an upbeat conversation, things we like. And so we ought to be trying to train people to contentment. By the way, it really helps if the parents will develop contentment. When I gripe about everything that happened all day long, I'm going to train discontent kids. And contentment or discontent and covetousness goes together. Oh, how come they have that? We'll go to the lake on vacation sometimes, and sometimes there's no money, and we'll go to the shore and fish. Oh, I wish I had a little boat like that. Well, if you have a little boat, then you look at the big boats and wish you had that. And if you have a big boat, you know what you do? You look at the houseboats and wish you had one of those. And if you have a houseboat, you complain because the wind blows it all over and it's so expensive, and you wish you just had a little, sit on the shore under a tent and fish. And so we're out on the lake with our family, and I said that. I said, no matter what boat you have, somebody's got a nicer one. We're just going to like what we got. You know how many times we've been in a little aluminum fishing boat and thought, oh, if we could have a nice pontoon boat like that. And I reminded them that we now are living what we once wished we lived. And that's training. And I see, a lot of times we think of training a child as chewing them out and scolding them. No, it's molding their thoughts and molding just like a school teacher teaches them to do numbers or colors. You're taking that little empty head and you're starting to shape the angles and the directions of it. And but anyway, we got to guard complaining. Let me see what time it is. We got just a minute or two. Why don't you talk about gratitude just a little bit, because it goes right along with that.
Okay. Of course, God says in everything, give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. One of the best things to do is teach children that God is in control of everything in our life, and that we need to be thankful and realize that God knows what He's doing. But if your children hear you give God thanks for all the blessings in your life, they will learn to do that. I don't know how many times we told our kids growing up, you know why we're able to do this is because, I would say, the reason that we're able to do this is because your dad serves the Lord. And look at all the blessings we have from that. We have somebody offer us their car, somebody's offered us their guest house, or someone's given us, sometimes people would give us their motor homes, and we'd say, your dad, it's because your dad serves the Lord, and God is blessing him, and God has been so good to us. And just teach them to be thankful. Teach them to say thank you.
Add just something to that. And then if something bad happens, Brother Ray Young's one who taught us this, if something bad happens, sickness, inconvenience, broken down, whatever, we say, you know what happens to everybody. Any of the goods we credit because we're in church, loving God, loving God's people. Anything bad happens, it happens to the unsaved and the saved alike. Rain falls on the just and the unjust. And so we don't want to think, well, because we're in the ministry, these negatives happen. Or because we're in church. Go ahead with that. That was just the other side of that.
But anyway, just children ought to be taught to say thank you whenever they're given something. Always. If you give them something, they should say thank you. If you do something for them, they should say thank you. Have them write thank you notes to people for acts of kindness or gifts that they're given. Teach them to love being, this is really important, and my husband might want to talk about this a little bit, but I really think, and especially in this day and age, we need to teach our children to be thankful they're a boy and thankful that they're a girl. Thankful that God created them to be a boy or a girl. And important that you teach them to love dressing like a boy. Love dressing like a girl. I always made my children's room. My girls' rooms are very feminine. My boys' rooms are very masculine. Because in the Bible, in Romans, it does say that...
Let me mention that. But just quickly, we're going to need to wrap this up. In Romans 1, because they were not thankful, God gave them over to a reprobate mind. And the end of that is men burning their lust one toward another, and women also exchanging the natural use, and on. That whole passage, it starts with ingratitude. And God giving them over to a reprobate mind. And it starts with giving God thanks. And gratitude is huge in our world, and we ought to be so grateful. I'll just mention one illustration. We're going to have to stop. When our kids were little and they wanted something, a cookie, can I have $1 to go buy or whatever? Usually they'd have to earn it. But anyway, if it was something I had, can I have this? I would hand it to them and say, yeah, sure, you can have this. And they'd take it, and I'd give them about a 3 count. 1, 2, 3. And if I didn't get a thank you by then, I'd say, never mind, I'd take it back. Countless times. You didn't say thank you. Thank you. Too late. Next time, put the cookie back in the cookie jar. Both of us have handled it. I don't know how many times I took things back from our children because they did not say thank you. Because if you're not grateful, you're getting nothing in our world. But see, those are not the only, the thought is go to the Bible, especially the book of Proverbs, read it day after day after day and say, God, give me wisdom, give me foresight, give me ideas, and then steal ideas from God's people. That's why we listen to godly preachers on child rearing, because, that's an idea that might work with this child that I wasn't sure how to do, because every kid's different. And when I see life one way, she sees life another way, and it's just so important. And don't, in this area of gratitude, be grateful for your spouse, because I believe my children got the mother God knew they needed. And I can let my kids complain about their mom. Oh, Mom. Dad, yeah, she's exactly what God wanted you to have.
That's one of the things to teach your children too, as mothers, is to teach your children to be thankful for their dad and talk good about their dad. I really believe, even if you're in a split home, it's good to talk good about the other parent and teach them to be thankful and try to think of the good things about that parent, because children need to be taught to be thankful and to be grateful for their parents.
All right, we better stop. We got a lot more on this, but there's a lot on the book table. Is there anybody back there watching those tables this hour? Somebody should be back there. We'll take about 10 minutes or whatever the clock says, and we'll get started with the main service. Choir, come on in. Let's get everybody in and seated. Thanks for coming early here. Thank you, buddy. we're waiting for people to come in. Why don't you grab that gold book in front of you? We're going to sing a couple of songs. Look over to page 13. God of the Mountains. Brother Schultz. Life is easy when you're up on the mountain, and you've got peace of mind like you've never known. But when things change and you're down in the valley, don't lose faith, John, for you're never alone. For the God of the mountain is still God in the valley. And you say, wrong, he'll make them right. And the God of the good times is still God in the bad times. The God of the day is the God in verse 2 on page 13 of that old book. We talk of faith when we're up on the mountain. When life's at its worst, it's down in the valley of your trials and temptations. That's when faith is really put to the test. And the God of the mountain is the God in the valley. When things go wrong, He'll make them right. And the God of the good times is the God in the bad times. The God of the day is the God Page 30, hide thou me. Now, this is something goofy about this, if you can fix it or not. I don't know, it doesn't sound goofy now, but when we're singing page 30, sometimes I feel discouraged. Just come on in, all you can hear, choir's up here, good.